guest today is Kevin Pickett. Kevin's career is a masterclass in consistent, high-impact growth. He is the Director of Business Development for Ascend Technologies, selling managed and IT services. Prior to Ascend, Kevin held both individual contributor and leadership roles in a number of technology-based companies, consistently driving significant revenue growth and earning recognition as a top performer. Kevin earned his bachelor's from Eastern Illinois University and his MBA from Aurora University, where he's returned as an adjunct professor, creating and teaching both undergraduate and graduate courses in marketing, selling, leadership, and management. Kevin's commitment extends to his community, where he champions economic empowerment and education, holding both local and national leadership roles in a number of institutions. Kevin is most passionate about mentoring students, helping young entrepreneurs bring their ideas to life, and teaching leadership skills through sports. My guest today is Kevin Pickett from Ascend Technologies. Kevin, welcome to another edition of Elevating Performance.
Mark, very excited to be on this. Look forward to the conversation.
Yeah, Kev, always great to see you. Can you tell me about the server stack, the products, and the markets for Ascend Technologies?
Yeah, so we are what's called an MSSP and an MSP. So MSSP is Managed Security Service Provider and a Managed Service Provider. So we basically work with companies, outsource their help desk, their infrastructure, and their cybersecurity services to us. I work a lot in the financial industry, do a lot with private equity firms. They invest quite a bit into manufacturing. So manufacturing is like the next biggest market. And then just professional services around law firms, CPA firms are who I really focus around and work with.
Gotcha. So most of the client portfolio has been funded by the private markets.
Yeah. So like about 42% of our business is in finance, some form or fashion. And we really work a lot in the mid-market, and we're probably low end on the enterprise standpoint.
Okay. Well, that gives us a platform that talk a little bit about. But the thing I really want to get to, Kevin, is you got to tell me what's your running streak right now.
Yeah, so I've averaged about 5 to 6 closed opportunities for 57 months in a row.
Wow. Industry standard is 40% attainment of quota.
Yeah.
A lot of probably reasons for that. Discipline around sales, metrics, the way they do it. Regardless, I don't care what somebody says. Hitting that many months in a row is pretty awesome.
Yeah.
How you doing in your total year to date?
Yeah, I hit my number for the year back in June, literally at 7:30 at night on June 30th. So right now, what we call accelerator lands. So it's really exciting for that aspect of things.
Wow. Outstanding in every regard.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Very happy. I'm both happy, I'm proud, everything about it, man. That's fantastic. Say, Kev, you mentioned earlier on, you do a lot of relationship selling, network-based selling. Can you tell me a little bit about your network and your relationships and how that impacts your selling success?
Yeah. So, I haven't made a cold call in probably 10, 15 years now. And how I've done that is I built relationships with people who have been around me and close to me and helped me out. So that's one aspect of it. And then we have a lot of different partnerships in place where we, from a channel standpoint, where we get a lot of introductions into clients and customers and growing in that business there. For me, it started really honestly back in our DC system days, and when I was working for you, it's just building that network up. Dana Bailey being one of those individuals that obviously worked at DC Systems when I was there. He ended up being a customer of ours, and then obviously I went to work for him at Ascend Technologies. But keeping contact with people that you can help out, and I always kind of have that go-giver mindset and try to help people out. From that standpoint, I believe in good karma that comes back to you. But I think cultivating the relationships, cultivating the network, surrounding yourself with good people and seeing how we can help each other out.
I probably should call her a couple things in there. Kevin worked for me coming out of college a long time ago. Dana Bailey was a VP at DC Systems. He was a CRO at Ascend eventually, where you and he worked together again. Now, you mentioned, as you were speaking, about the go-giver mindset.
Yeah.
And you've told me privately before that book, The Go-Giver, has really been an anthem for your life. Can you color that for us, Kevin?
Yeah. When I read that book, I was like, boy, this is like literally, it's like written for me. It's everything I try to do. And it really kind of connected with me and helping understand the mindset of, just naturally be helpful to people. Right. And I'm always thinking of how can I be helpful to you? How can I help you? What can I do for you? And it's not really looking what I can get out of it. I mean, to me, that comes back, but it's really, I've been since I was a young kid, I've always kind of stepped up and as a leader and just where can I be helpful? I volunteer in the community. That to me is probably one of the greatest examples of being a go-giver. You go out there and you don't expect anything in return, and you roll up your sleeves and you get involved. And so for me, that book by Berg is outstanding. Anybody that works with me or around me, I always recommend read it. To me, it just should be at the core of what we do and should be at the core of who we are.
I've been fortunate because I've heard this from you before.
Mm-hmm.
It so resonates with me, and the world you and I were mutually involved with, that was a big part of our overall culture.
Yeah.
And I've heard you talk about it in a grander sense, that I wish everybody had that mentality about life and helping their neighbor and helping their business peers, because we probably all would be happier and have greater mutual success. But I've always thought it was a very noble tone, Kevin, and I've been able to watch your career and see it actually play out. So it's been really heartwarming all the way around.
Well, I mean, you get a lot of credit for that, right? I mean, I come to your company as a young person out of college, and honestly, a lot of the go-giver traits and personality is really you. And what you built there. And to me, you built the foundation where my career is today. You were obviously one of my very first business mentors I ever worked with. And we've kept in contact all these years. And just what DC systems and what you built there and what you taught doesn't happen anymore, which is unfortunate. But you're investing in young people and investing in their careers. And I love watching all the old DC system folks doing great things in their field and where they're at. And that's a feather in your cap, because quite frankly, we don't get there unless you put this program together and help us all build our foundation.
Well, that's very, very kind for you, Kevin, to call that out. But at this stage of our career, we just get to look back with great nostalgia at the things that we did great. We just had fantastic, fantastic people. I can tell you privately behind the scenes that's people were recruited for that.
Yeah.
We wanted that mentality. We cultivated it. We supported it. And in our world, if you weren't necessarily in that tone, you probably weren't with us for long. It just meant we really supported that both internally and externally in every morsel of things that we did.
Yeah, I mean, you're very purposeful in it, right? I mean, I think you could tell the people that were working there were there for a reason. You built a great culture, and it's some of the most fond memories I've ever had, and it was just a great place to be at. And it's a great place to start my career at as well.
A thing that I'm particularly proud of is that that whole sales team. I'm still intimate with all of them. Yep. I mean, chat with them, talk with them, coach them up, and anything I can support. And in that, every single one of you went through a pretty intense technical development program.
Yes.
Everybody, even the PR people that supported activities and our creative people, everybody went through that systems engineer development program. And that was not an easy track, but you gain respect. You figure out where to be, where your spot was in team selling dynamic. And I believe in the long run, that really paid benefits for everybody involved. The engineering crowd fought me on it, Kevin.
Oh, I'm sure.
The scenes.
They don't want any part of us. No.
But I was adamant, man. I was like, no, we got to do this. This is the future. And I think it was a healthy thing. And today it's one of those things like 25, 30 years later, I finally can say, okay, I was right.
No, you were right. And I knew you were right from day one, because it just put people in a room together that don't typically maybe talk to each other, work with each other in a setting where you need to rely on each other. Right. So it was fun though. It was like, for me, looking back at it now, it's kind of like the TV show The Apprentice. You have a problem to solve. You're putting a lot of different personalities in a room, and you're saying, make it work. And then we present in front of in front of the leadership team, and it was fun. I remember that fondly. And quite honestly, to me, I'm like, I knew where I can add some value. I knew where I couldn't add value, and I was the first to raise my hand and say, listen, I can help with theater, I can help with that, but I have no idea what that is and stuff. So
looking back at that, Kev, today it's like, I imagine people just shrugging their shoulder like, yeah, that's how it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
But back then, customer success, there's no such thing.
No, it didn't exist.
There's no such thing as a pure system architect. There was no such thing as a very specialized areas that are part of an aggregate team today. None of that stuff existed back then. So you had this confrontation between the engineering world, the development world, and the sales team. And for whatever reason, back then, it was friction.
Yeah.
And our answer was like, you know what? You're going to go in that room And for everybody else, the room was 15, 18 hours a day for weeks
Sure.
on end. Really intense stuff. And figure it out. Figure out where each person's role is, how they contribute. Don't, by all means, do not pigeonhole somebody or not include them on team activities. Everyone lean in and figure out what to do. And I think, Kevin, in retrospect, in its time, that was really out there. That
Oh,
really
yeah.
was.
And just to kind of bring it forward, I don't think there's a call that I'm on where I don't have a technical resource shoulder to shoulder with me working, and I'm the conductor, and I'm just kind of putting people in the positions to make them really strong and having a powerful message in that sales conversation. Because you can take the word sales out of it. It's just a conversation and how we can help you, right? What are your challenges? What are your issues? What are the goals you have around IT? And how can we help you? Oh, by the way, I'm bringing my subject matter experts into the call because these folks have the experience and they're the ones doing the work. So we want to hear from them. So that's exactly what that was building towards, all the way back then. Nobody wants to buy from somebody. It's just them. They want to know there's other people involved. They want to know who they're going to work with. So the whole buying experience has changed quite a bit during this time, from that day. But you were ahead of the game. You were ahead of the world on that one. That's what I think is crazy. I mean, you had that mindset of that this is where we need to go to be productive, and for customers to trust you, to trust that you can get the job done for them. And how do you do that? Well, you bring other people to the table that aren't a part of a sales process, but we put them in a position where they're comfortable, and then they can turn around and be productive and feel good about it. When these deals come in, they feel really good about it, and they should.
Well, I'll tell you something interesting, and this has only come with age. With age, you earn perspective.
Yep.
My perspective these days is I'm a little bit slower on innovation. It's not that my mind and my thoughts don't move fast.
Yeah.
I just recognize that if you're too far out, if you sprint too far ahead, the resistance cycles it's a lot of burden. If your own team and the client, the community, the market, if you're too far out in front, when you're young, you don't know any better. So you're going to fly. As time has passed, I've recognized that I don't want to be at the end of the line, but I don't want to be miles way in front unless you got funding like you wouldn't believe. There's some lessons in there about how far you push things.
Yeah.
Kevin, we all carry the mantra these days of AI first, very similar to how just a few years ago it was mobile first in application development. With that as a backdrop and looking at your history of constant success, Kevin, how are you adopting an AI first mindset in your selling motions? And are there any tools that are your go-to these days?
Yeah. So as you can imagine, being a technology company, AI is on the forefront for us. And so we do a lot with Microsoft. Copilot is their AI, obviously their AI answer to that. I would tell you, it has changed the way I do business. And what I mean by that is it makes me more efficient. I travel quite a bit, and the emails just start stacking up, right? And who has time to go through 150 emails? So at the top of a group of emails, right? Let's say 10, 15 emails in a group, I will hit summarize at the last email, and it'll summarize all of the emails. And if somebody called me out, because we do that in our company, where we'll do the @ call us out, I will know kind of what some to-dos are for that. But I've taken actually a step further now, and I do it on every email. So even if there isn't a large group of emails, if it's a long email, I'm like, oh, I hit summarize, and it gives me the 4 or 5 bullet points of what's going on in that email. So it's perfect. I also utilize it from an email creation standpoint. So when I'll write up an email that I want to do, and I'll put into Copilot literally 2 words: make better. And I drop it in there, and they just make it sound better. And they're thinking things that I should have thought of, and then I'll massage it because it's got to sound like it's from me. I've even looked at like really long emails. Give me a good response to this email. Boom, and I drop it in there, and they give something that's very thoughtful. So for me, I'm utilizing it quite a bit. It's a way for me to clean my responses up. We utilize with RFP responses. If we're getting stumped on questions, we'll go ahead and drop some information in there. So for me personally, Copilot has been kind of like my right hand in how I do things.
Do you take those artifacts and I'm sure you have a CRM? Do they go directly to your CRM or
so a lot?
How does the flow work?
So utilizing SharePoint for that standpoint. We use Salesforce from our CRM standpoint. So there's a couple of different AI tools there. Einstein's one for them. We're just kind of dipping our toe in. There's a new company out there that I've had some good conversation with called Pod that does a lot around just analytics around the deals. Do you have a real deal, right? So Einstein dips into that. This pod I like a lot more because it gives you kind of strategy as what you can do to get the deal back on track. So there's a lot of different tools I'm just starting to get into around that kind of deal review of, do I have a real deal or do I not have a real deal?
As you spoke there, the words accountability were coming to my mind. Remember back in the day when people, let's just say generally people didn't report properly on a pipe? That can crush a business, man. And it's like, what are you doing? You're not being truthful on the pipe. What are you just buying yourself hours, for crying out loud?
Yeah.
We've got to get after that and find out, is it viable? What are their buying signals going on? What are you really following up on? And then having some intelligence to look past, like, well, wait a second. We have 30 years of deals here. And what you're telling us what's going on with your new deal on the pipe, it sure isn't matching up with anything we've ever done in the past.
Yeah. It's interesting. We use ACT, I believe, at DC Systems, if my memory's correct.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
So that was my first instance with CRM, right? And you were pretty adamant about making sure we had everything in there. So ever since then, I've been very fanatic about CRM. CRM hygiene, clean. I take it from the approach of, this is to help me run my business. If Mark as the leader wants to look at it, that's great. It's only a bonus, but I'm not doing this for them. I'm doing this for me. And that's a mindset thing that I think people need to understand.
Yep.
But you would always ask us a question. I don't remember asking this question. It's like, you come by our cube. So what do you got going? I said, here, why do you think that's going to close? And then I would have to give you, I just feel like it is. That didn't fly. I had to give you reasons as to why. Well, here's the conversation we had. They're in the budget conversation. I am talking to the authority that could sign off. Having those details. So I learned, I think from the day one, the right way to do this is just to really understand where they're at in the buying process and why, those are the reasons, those are the facts that why I believe that they'll close, not because I just feel like it. You need to have actual facts and predictable reasons as to why they do this. This is what typically happens. So again, dating back to DC Systems, it's just another ingrained thing in my head from day one. And so anybody I've ever worked with, anybody I've ever managed, CRM, literally when I had reps would come up to me and say that, I have some questions. My first question back is, this in the CRM? No, great. Go put it in there and then we'll have a conversation. You want my time? You need to do that one simple thing. And, it only took once or twice for that to happen.
Kev, I may jump through the screen and hug you. If it's not in the CRM, man,
doesn't exist.
Don't be talking. Yeah, it doesn't exist.
It doesn't exist. If it's on CRM, it doesn't exist. That was my famous saying. I'm sure anybody that worked for me in the past that listens to this will curl up and, a ball because they know that, but they understood it. And I made sure that there's a reason for this. There's a value to this. This is for you to run your business. I always kind of took my mindset of being an entrepreneur, right? I've got a book of business and I'm going after, and my goal is to do as much as I can in that book of business and make the company as much money, which in turn will make me money. It's a win-win for everybody. It'll make the customers and clients happy, because if you don't have passion or belief in what they're doing, then you're probably not going to sell it anyway, right? So to me, it's like, I passionately believe we can help our clients get better, and it's a win for everybody, when you do that.
All right. This is where I'm going to do my cheer.
I know, I'm getting excited about it now.
Yeah. Okay. Two guys can get excited about a sales pipe.
Yes. Hey, you know what? This is what it is. It's the world we live in.
Kevin, in preparation for our call, I did a little research on as many topics as we may hit. And one of the things I did is I went out to LinkedIn and I looked at all the referrals that were written for you. Pretty impressive. 50 some people have written recommendation for your work and relationship with them. So congratulations there. But what really struck me is that you've written more than 85 referrals to other people on LinkedIn. Absolutely outstanding in every regard. Very, very impressed by that, Kevin. In that context, your go-giver mindsets and all those spirit of giving that you shared with us in this call, if you had a chance to go back in the Wayback Machine to catch an earlier version of yourself, what type of advice might you give yourself about the road ahead?
Yeah, so I have been very fortunate to have really good mentors in my career, and you're obviously one of those. And I've had other mentors that have helped me in different parts of my career. And as a young professional, being in the office was such a key part of my growth, because I was able to sit there and just listen to people and how they did things, and just, okay, that's some messaging I wasn't thinking about. I could tell what kind of questions they were getting just by the responses they were giving. And I'm like, oh, that's really good messaging. That's really good content. And then after the call, we'd have conversations around, okay, hey, what did they ask you there? Okay, good. That's really interesting. Having that ability to, just to retain the knowledge, right? And I wish I would have done more of it, right? And just been more intentful on it. But as I got older in my career, I did that. And so what I've been very fortunate to do this part of my career is be a mentor, a leader, a coach to sales professionals at various stops. And currently I'm doing that with a gentleman by the name of Tyler Watt. And I learned things from him. The irony is that we have an age gap. So I love Seinfeld and I give Seinfeld quotes and he has no idea what I'm talking about. So he's Googling those as we're having conversations. But he asked tons of questions, and I think that's important. So I don't know if I asked enough questions at his age. I think I should have asked more. And that's a bit of advice I give to them.
I had another guest on. Her name was Diana Gibson. She was vice president at Microsoft. But when I asked her the same question about going back in time, her answer was really unique, and you just hit on a little bit. She said she would get new members that would join Microsoft, and she would do a reverse mentorship program with them. And her logic was the younger generations, they think differently, their tone, their tenor, their value structures, whatever, just like us. They're different for their generation. And Diana said that she purposely had done that. And you had just referenced that it's a symbiotic relationship where it went back and forth, that you're picking up things from him as much as you're investing and kind of showing him the way.
I think what he gives me is a different point of view, right? And he has a different set of eyes and ears on that particular piece of it. I come with, my knowledge and years of doing stuff, but he comes up with something like, hey, I think we should do it this way. And I'm like, okay, well, why do you think that? He's like, well, because of this, and this. I'm like, let's try it. Let's see what it does, because I think, trying new things and being a little bit different is okay. And there's times where he's like, hey, I have no idea what you're talking about. He's like, I'll listen to calls be like, they're going to stump you. And then you turn around and you just kind of roll into a diagram. You take it to a direction. He said, I had no idea that was possible to go. And he's like, and it constantly reminds him of how much he's got to learn. But I'm like, hey, it's a process, right? No, you're going to make mistakes. It's okay to make mistakes. We all make mistakes together. I make mistakes and, I just don't dwell on them, right? And that's just kind of with age and wisdom. When I was your age, I would dwell on these mistakes and I would think too much into them. And now I just blow right past them. Okay, well, let's pivot and let's focus on a different thing. And he's like, and that's something he's like, always surprised at my ability to do that. I'm like, well, when I was your age, I did not do that well. I said, so, you're obviously getting an opportunity here to kind of see behind the curtain at a young age how this works. And, I had good mentors, and a lot of times my mentors were outside of the company. And I think that's just so important to the success of anything you're trying to do is you can't try to do it on yourself. You need to be coachable, right? You need to be open to feedback. And I always say feedback's a gift. It's up to you how you unwrap it. And, I'm always giving feedback and I'm very direct, which Tyler appreciates, or learned to appreciate, I should say, because I think in the beginning it was like, whoa, but no, he understands how we do things now. And honestly, I don't get to the number I did in June if it wasn't for Tyler.
There's a lot to like about that, and of the many things, because we're talking about what you might do when you were younger in your career, just the advice. Finding mentors that are good quality people that will lean in and talk with you and coach you up before and after sessions. Like, geez, Kev, what were you talking about? All right. Yeah. I positioned it this way because of this narrative, bam, 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 bam. They'll deconstruct a conversation. And the point being is finding people like that in your career that they care. They got a good nature. They're busy and they're rushed. But if you're respectful and you go to them and say, hey, I need help, or I have questions, I'm curious why you do this and that. If they're world-class, if they're quality people, my experience is that they'll lean in. I mean, you got to be respectful, but they'll lean in and they'll break that down, and they will have more pride. And the next 2 or 3 times that circumstance happens, and you improve on your own delivery, or you're able to deliver it, it makes their day. It's like, that's awesome. So that old adage, I never learned as much as the day I taught someone else.
I used to have this adage of, anytime somebody wanted help or wanted somebody to volunteer for something, I had a helium hand and it just would float up. I'd be, raise my hand before I realized whether I could even commit to it. Now I'm a little bit better on committing to it. I got 4 kids and filled with activities. So my free time shrinks down quite a bit than it did when I was in my 20s. But to me, I just so much want to genuinely help people, because I think that's just the right thing to do. And it was how I was raised by my parents and our family. I'm the youngest of 7 kids. great brothers and sisters as mentors and just to look up to them and doing things the right way. I think that's important to understand that because there's right ways to do things and there's wrong ways to do things. And it's good to have the understanding of why one is right, one it might be wrong.
All good and healthy. Good and healthy stuff
absolutely.
right there. Kevin, in prep for this call, again, I went out and looked at LinkedIn. You had nearly a page and a half of your outside interests. That's the contributions that you're making to the school district, the JCs, to your local community, the entrepreneurship program. It was very impressive. Can you talk to me a little bit about why that is and the paybacks that you've received from all that goodwill that you put out in the world?
Yes. So over the next 2 hours, we can talk about this. No, I mean, I'd say this is where I have the most fun. And, I grew up with parents that always gave back and volunteered and just instilled it in our brains that this is what you do, right? You give back to the communities that you're in. And I got involved in the high schools, in neighborhood on their entrepreneurship program. Did that for a very long time. Still stay in contact with a lot of the folks that I mentored and coached in that program to date. They're all in business. They're doing great stuff. It's just fun to watch them on LinkedIn and see how successful they are. And if I was any small part of that, that's even better. I do a lot of coaching. I coach my oldest son who's now 21. I haven't coached baseball in 7 years, and I just started back up again with my other son who's now 9. And to get back on the field it was exciting. And this is a fun story to share. And I'm the assistant coach, so this is kind of an adjustment for me. I've always been a manager, so I'm kind of working through that adjustment. But our manager wasn't able to make it for the first practice, so I ran it. And one of the things I always love to do in the beginning of the year is let's get to meet each other, right? Because you might know each other. I don't know you guys, or not everybody knows each other. So I said, take a knee, introduce your name, tell me what is the thing you love the most about baseball, and then tell me one area that you want to get better at. So at the end of this fall season, you're saying, when you look back, that's what I want to be better at, and we're all said and done. What impressed me the most was the first kid stood up. He came right up to me, turned, so he's side by side with me and faced the group and said his name, what he loved about baseball, and what he wanted to improve on. And then we went down the line. They all did it. All 11 of the kids that were there, we have 12 on the team, 11 were there. I was stunned. I'm like, wow. Because in the past when I've done that, it's always been from a knee, right? Nobody's ever done that. So I was very impressed with if this is the next generation, we're off to a great start already. And it was just a fun practice. And I talked to them about really 3 things. I said, there are 3 things that are important. It's 1, let's have fun, because if we're not here to have fun, what are we doing, right? 2, let's learn. Let's grow. Mistakes are okay. This is a mistake-free zone. Do not dwell on it. And really, the last one is we're going to do things the right way, right? You run out to first base, right? You run on off the field. It's yes, coach. It's, thank the umpire after the game, right? You do our handshakes, and then everybody goes to the umpire and shakes their hand. Go tell the coaches, thank you for being out there, because none of us get paid to do this. So these are all these little things that I think are a little bit missing when I was watching my son in the previous season when I wasn't coaching. I'm like, this is why I'm getting back into coaching. Not that I'm some masterful baseball strategist. It's let's teach things the right way, because those skills they learned there, they're with them for the rest of their lives. And, they're already off to a good start by the fact that they stood up and did what they did. To me, putting all that together is it's fun to give back, and I highly encourage people to do that. And, because I think I can talk about this for an hour.
Well, Kevin, we've both done a lot of youth coaching, and that story you talked about the young players coming up and standing next to an adult and then addressing their teammates. That is outstanding. You'll remember this name, Grant Taft. He was a famous coach at Baylor in the 70s. Very big man, flat nose, gravelly voice. The whole package was Coach Taft. Now, Coach Taft went on to become the executive director of the American Football Coaches Association. And through other means in my life, Coach Taft and I became friends. Anyway, for every season, at the end of the year, we would have our banquet. And before the banquet, we'd play the 45-minute highlight tape. Well, this one season, we'd won our 3rd championship in a row. And I wrote a note to Coach Taft saying, hey, Coach, would you record a message for the boys? And Kevin, what he did was awesome. It was right at the AFCA headquarters. The national championship trophies were right behind him, and he had this voice that was just booming.
But from my standpoint, The thing that I really appreciate is that not only has the staff taught all you guys how to win on the field, but off the field as well.
He had that pregnated pause in the way he delivered it. He knew it was all about taking the young men of our community and turning them into young leaders, establishing those good, positive disciplines that would play out for the rest of their life. And when you talk about some of the habits you were teaching these baseball players, I hate to typecast young folks, but unless they get a coach that would really call people out, because there was a trust environment that, hey, if coach said I wasn't hustling to first, or I didn't run in some obscure play or do everything that you're supposed to do. Again, I hate to typecast young folks, but I'm of the opinion that they're the folks that may never do follow-up calls and sales, may not populate that CRM or do all the minutia that leads to success, that you need to have somewhere in your life, somebody that has a degree of discipline, makes you accountable and holds you up to it, and then celebrates with you when you do that properly. I think that's very important, and that's what Coach Taft was talking about in just that awesome speech he gave to our boys.
That's a moment they're not going to forget either, right? When they hear that piece,
Push to the side all our professional successes. That investment in youth, be it in athletics, be it in any endeavor. If you're in band or you're in tumbling or you're in cheerleading or I do not care. Yes, football was I can relate to that, but I don't care. Get into something, and whatever you do, try to be the very best. The reward for the adults that lean in and have the right mindset and really try to coach those youngsters to make them better, I don't think it gets much better than that in life. It's something very admirable.
Well, I could tell you I've got social proof on it. So LinkedIn is really the only social media I'm on, right? And I consider it a business tool. So I post on 3 distinct topics. One is, of course, about Ascend. 2 is about sales, just a topic of sales. I love sales, right? But the third one is giving back in my community involvement. And when I'm in the classroom, when I'm doing that stuff, I'll post on that. Of the 3, the one that by far gets the most interactions and reactions to is when I post about the stuff I do in the community. It is almost 2 to 3 to 1, the interaction I get. And that just tells me the people I'm surrounded with, which is my community on LinkedIn, is pretty like-minded, right? And I always encourage you, get involved. You know, there are plenty of opportunities in your local community that you could just raise your hand and go out there and get involved. And it will, even if it's for an hour a week or 2 hours a week, that makes a big difference. And I think, you know, more people that have that mindset, more people that do that, just makes our community stronger.
Kevin, those are fantastic final words.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for being a guest with us, Kevin. It's always wonderful to reconnect with you and to be able to watch the continued success that you've had in your career and in life. I'm very happy as a friend that's been able to watch that.
Well, Mark, you were a big influence on me young in my career. You were a big reason as to where I'm at today. I thank you for that, because honestly, I don't think I'm where I'm at today without your leadership and what you provided to me back then. So at the end of the day, you have to have strong, really talented people like yourself. And I really appreciate it. I love this. This is fun. We could have done this for hours. I enjoy this. So anytime you want me to come back, I'm always willing to do that. Anything you need from me, I'm always here for you.
Oh, fantastic. Kevin, thank you very much, old friend. Speak soon.
Yes, absolutely. Take care.
All right,
Thank
buddy.
you.
Talk to you again soon, buddy.
So my congratulations, that of the American Football Coaches Association, and the 12,000 members that coach football all over America. We say to all of you, congratulations for your 3rd championship in a row.